I feel like that, man.
Got to bring back that wave. And hey guys, Happy New Year. It's 2026. I'm here with my man Wally, and we're going to talk some Astros tonight. Wally, Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year. How was your New Year? Mine was good. We were in Galveston.
Oh man, I stayed close to home, stayed in, and it was just super chill, man. It was nothing super eventful. Just took it easy, man. Just took it
And we
easy.
just let
That's
the
it.
amateurs, we let the amateurs go out.
Yeah.
As a, I have a friend, a dear friend, who's a long-term recovering alcoholic. I say 40 years, and he said that's what they would say. And they go to AA. They let the amateurs go out, and said if they really want to know how the professionals do it, we can show them how it's done.
Yeah, right. Man, I'm a little no, I'm a little past my prime of going out on the town and doing a big thing like that on New Year's. So I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe
I
sometime down the road
completely
again. Who
agree.
knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe 2030, like the turn of a decade kind of thing. Who
look,
knows? We'll see.
in 2030, I'll be 69, so I don't think so.
Now, wow. Okay. All right. Well, the Astros have made some moves, signed a couple of arms, got some infield help, I guess, theoretically, you could say.
Theoretically.
Um, so yeah, I guess let's kind of maybe jump right into it and let's talk about some of the moves that the Astros have made. What else might they need to make? And what do you really see as a possible? I think Imai is obviously a very high impact move for the Astros, but do you see any other potential high impact moves that the Astros could make?
Well, Crane's kind of funny. He'll talk out of both sides of his mouth. He'll say he's not going over the salary cap, but then he does.
Yeah.
If there's a deal out there that he thinks is worth it and to do it, he will. Um, Going over the salary cap is really not one guy. You're taking that extra money and dividing it out by your roster. So if you're 26, 26 million over the cap and it's a 50% tax, well, you just increased everybody's salary by a mil. That's rich people's problems to talk about, but it's a way of justifying the the ability to do it. Imai is kind of an interesting guy. It's a strategic move. It's a strategic move, but I was looking at Imai the other night, just looking at some YouTubes, and hadn't spent a ton of time, but looked at him a few. His fastballs, it looks very firm. It's electric. His split, which looks like he's using that as his changeup, is good. The one that I think that the pitching lab's going to have to worry about is the slider.
Mm-hmm.
When he throws the slider, it looks like it's got a hump in it. And when you're trying to tunnel all those pitches, if they can see that slider, big league pitchers or big league hitters will pick that up.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 1.92 ERA in Japan, so this last year, so he could certainly put the numbers up. But MLB hitters are a different animal. So
Absolutely.
it's going to be
Absolutely.
really interesting to see how he is. People have talked about him as a 3. I think if he
Mm-hmm.
can get his slider back, he's at least a 3, and I think a 2. But
Yeah.
when you look at what the Astros have, they've got more pitchers that could be starters than they have books in the Old Testament. So you,
For
you've got
sure.
just got a list of guys that can start, but really, all of them are 4s. The
Yeah.
big wild card is Lance.
Yeah.
Lance came back and he was throwing 90.
Mm-hmm.
Lance used to be able to get away with his lack of command a lack of control like he had last year, and it's really the same that he had because he could throw 95, 96, and he have a
Right.
great curve, and he could change
Yep.
speeds with the curve. Well,
24 in a
last
row.
year yeah, last year, he was around 90, and he couldn't throw strikes, and then people laid off everything else. Um, so I just don't yeah, that's a big question. Is Lance gonna be a part of this of the rotation? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the way that this rotation plays out, obviously Hunter Brown's your headliner, right? He's your ace of the crew. Christian Javier and Imai, again, you said it, could swap 2 and 3, really. And then from there, you know, you got a mixture of Lance, Arrighetti, Burrows, who we didn't bring up the fact that he's in there, and that we made the trade for Burrows from Pittsburgh. I think what you're looking at is kind of like you said. You've got solid 1, 2, 3, and then from there you've got a bunch of fours. Actually, I mean, I think that mixture of Arrighetti, McCullers, Burrows, and whoever else really could end up could end up being a really solid rotation.
It could.
Um, it really could. Throw Nate Pearson in there.
Yeah,
I think Nate Pearson, high velocity fastball guy, strong strikeout ability when he was in the minors. Does that translate over into the majors, or what do they get out of this guy if they put him in the lab? Um, yeah, it could play out to be a really solid rotation for the Astros. I would still like to see them grab somebody that is proven. I really
I
would,
would too.
but I think that if we're looking at what the next need for the Astros is, you've got to say a left-handed bat. This lineup is way too right-handy, and I
Yep,
think that when you're looking at how the outfield is kind of playing out, you can say Cam gets another shot. He's going to have to earn it. Jake Myers, there's been rumors of trading Jake. I still think that that's probably not something that happens. Um, but this lineup is really right-handed. And so
yep.
I think if there's a move to be made for the Astros yet, it's got to be a left-handed bat. And honestly, maybe that comes in the way of a backup catcher. Maybe they go
Could
find a,
be.
a lefty backup catcher. I know, everybody in Houston would love to see Caratini back. He was at the Rockets game the other night with Imai. Not with Imai. He was in the seats in
Right.
a different place. But I know he still probably lives here in Houston, and he's a fan of the city. This has been his home. But yeah, I think it'd be nice to see the Astros go get out a left-handed bat
What
to
about Jonah Heim
finalize these moves. I've seen some people bring up the idea of Jonah Heim. Does he
as a
come to
backup?
Houston? Yeah. Does he come to Houston as a backup? Or does this guy still think that he's got starter left in him?
Here's kind of a way I might see that work is it's a big year for Diaz. When Diaz lets the
It's a
pitch come to
big
him.
prove it year. Yes.
Yeah, when he lets the pitch come to him, there's few better, but
Hmm.
he'll swing at anything. When he's
Yep.
gets into that habit of swinging at just anything just cause the ball's spinning, he- he's he gets himself out way too much. And someone like a Heim might be healthy competition to him. Heim was, non-tendered, so he's
Hmm.
not he's going to come. He would come at a reasonable price. Now, did the Astros think there's anything in the tank? I don't know, but he's a switch hitter. He's he's proven in the past that he can play.
Yep.
That's what the front office gets paid to do. Here, speaking of guys you can pick up, looking at pitchers, um, the two that come to mind that could be starters, and fill a gap would be Ranger Suarez and Zach Gallen. Now, I don't know if those guys come because or they spend the money on because they spend it on Imai. Those that ship might have sailed, but you a couple other
Hmm.
guys out there is Ryan Stanek and Taylor Rogers. Those
Hmm.
10. Rogers is a left-hander. Wasn't
Yep.
great last year,
And
but he's had good years in the past.
hmm
And just because you were
Stanek
bad
proved
last
himself
year as a
again.
reliever, just because you were bad as a reliever last year doesn't mean you won't be good this year.
Yep. Yep. I agree. And I think Stanek kind of reproved himself in New York last year as well.
He
So
did.
that's a name that the Astros could end up looking at if they decide to go for bullpen certainty and leverage, bringing in some sort of a veteran. This has historically been a team that's trusted their internal arm barn,
Right,
um, and the work that they do with those guys in the minors. Not to mention Dana's ability to dumpster dive Rule 5 drafts, the waiver wire, all of the things that Dana does really well. And that even if he gets a guy that comes in for, you know, a month, six
right.
weeks, 2 months sometimes, Dana has proven himself to go out and use his scouting team's ability to find these diamonds in the rough that come in and contribute to this team. So, yeah, there's a part of me that feels like, they might just sit where they are and trust the internal work that they've put together already. And then Dana cooks again with some waiver wire guys and some Rule 5 draft guys and, some of these dumpster dives that he does. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do when it comes to that bullpen certainty, because I feel like there's still maybe just a little bit of uncertainty when it comes to the bullpen.
Always.
When it comes to starting pitching, health is going to be the biggest variable. You can't assume that every one of these guys that we've talked about and that we've named are going to go out and give you 30 starts. Um,
No.
so I think that when you're looking at the strategy and we're looking at what it still needs to be addressed, the big the biggest word that comes to my mind is certainty. Like the Astros need to find some certainty as the team last year that broke major league record for most guys on the injured list. This is a team that needs to focus on certainty for 2026.
Yeah, and speaking of that certainty, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in their infield guys. So they still got an infield guy too much.
Yep.
Who knows? They may just hold on to the guys, figuring that the players they have, Correa has a injury history. You
Yep.
hate to trade a Walker or a Paredes away, knowing that knowing
Yep.
that Correa may be out for 50 games a year. So
Heck, Pena missed 40 games last year. I
yeah,
mean,
Pena missed 40
you
games. He had
know,
that.
yeah, yeah. You never
He got
know, and
hit by that pitch, and that was the
yep,
most bizarre thing. I've
that
never
was so
seen
weird.
anybody get hit like that, break a rib, and be out for a month.
It was
No,
so
40
weird. That
games.
was so weird. Hmm.
But that's last thing we look about what happened of the subtractions. You got Dubon, Melton, Ort, Trammell, Chaz, Garcia. And I was kind of hoping they'd hold on to Garcia or try to sign him back, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think Garcia's thrown his last pitch.
Yep.
Was not surprised to see Melton go with Cole coming in
Nope.
and being a potential. I think he's Melton with more upside. Cole has to make contact, and
Yep.
that's what Melton's problem was. Dubon, 6 million was more than they're going to pay for a 680 OPS
Yep.
utility guy. As
Yep.
much as we love him, if he plays more than 110 games, you got a problem.
Something's
Chaz,
wrong. Yep.
I'd see the one I think that they'll try to sign to a minor league deal is Ort, and Ort's 34, so he might take it and know that there's a place. They know him. There's a place for him.
Yeah. Yep. Brandon Rogers might get another shot at a minor league deal. I don't think he's re-signing
I
either.
don't know if he's going to get another one with us.
No. Yeah.
I don't think there's any place to put him.
No.
I
Just
think
have him in your back
somebody
pocket.
will give him a shot. I think somebody will give him a shot, but, boy, for a young guy, he sure looked washed up, didn't he?
He did. I mean, he had sparks of brilliance in him too, especially defensively. But yeah, yeah. Mm, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. You
I don't
got
know.
Altuve, for better or for worse, is gonna have to play second base.
Yeah, and he'll get his DH plugs,
Yep,
when Jordan's playing the outfield, because I think that's kind of part of the plan. At least reading between the lines, it sounds like they want Jordan to play a little bit more in the field this year.
that's what it
And
said.
and honestly, they're going to have to,
Yep,
being that they're so infield heavy, and giving Altuve DH at bats. Jordan's going to have to play the outfield.
yeah,
Um,
I figure Altuve's, of the 155 games Altuve will play, he'll DH 50 and play in the field 100, something like that, don't you?
yeah, yeah, I think so as well. I mean, heck, they may even give him a few games here and there in left field,
Yeah,
home games in left field, and let Paredes play second, and and Jordan DH. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this merry-go-round of a crowded infield of quality bats that really should be seeing every day at bats, everyday lineups.
yeah.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens there. Yep.
What do you think
Yep.
what do you think about what the rest of the division has done?
I think it's interesting to look around and see. I think the Astros still have the most complete roster in the division. They still have the veteran core, a lot of postseason experience outside of missing the playoffs last year. The question will be, can they stay healthy enough to separate themselves from the rest of the division? The Mariners, obviously, elite pitching. Offense remains a big question mark for those guys. The Mariners feel like a team that wins a lot of 2-1 ball games.
Mhm.
You
But,
know,
it was funny
um,
looking at it's funny looking at the numbers for the Mariners last year. They hit better than you think, okay? They're like
yeah,
number of
I
runs,
don't disagree. Yeah.
they were 8th in MLB in runs, and the pitching, the reputation was better than the performance last year in pitching.
Mm.
And, pitching is such a weird animal, isn't it?
Oh, I
You
mean,
know,
it is, and especially when you're relying on some of those young guys like they do.
yeah,
I think it leaves you for a razor thin margin of error. Great pitching hides flaws, and it can support a faltering offense, but it doesn't erase those things over the long haul of a 162 game season. They were able to they were able to keep a lot of it together last year. I don't know how. Um, but
well,
at the same time,
they
how can
hit
you
tons of home
sustain
runs.
sustain a lot of that? They did hit tons of home runs. There's a lot of question marks about that. You
Yeah.
take Cal Raleigh out of that equation, and it changes a lot of the makeup of the way that team's offense plays. And so, I think that's one of the big questions: is does Cal Raleigh have another year like last year in him? He's a young guy, strong as hell. Um, you know, inflated ego now. Does he go out there and try too hard to remake last year's wonder and have a struggling season and go back to, you know, 28, 32 home runs a season? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting. It looks like they're not bringing Gino Suarez back,
It doesn't look like
uh,
it.
unless he just hangs out there and they can get him for a bargain. Um, they brought, Naylor back, which he seems to be a real good fit with them.
Mhm.
A lot of their growth was organic. They did bring that relief pitcher Ferrer they traded for Harry Ford. And, and good for them for trading Harry Ford into to a position with Washington where he gets a chance to play.
Yep.
Rather than, because, you're not sitting behind Raleigh. You're sitting behind Raleigh, you're going to get some, some play, but you're going to rot. And good for them on a couple of ways. Giving him a chance to play. And then secondly, it's good roster management. You don't need a backup catcher with that much. The team I want to watch is the A's.
Mm.
The A's,
Spoiler. Play
well,
spoiler.
they outside of a stretch when they lost 20 of 21 games, they were good. They beat us
Hmm.
like a rented mule last year. I mean, they just beat the daylights out of the
They
Astros.
always have the Astros number, man.
But
It's years
but
of it.
yeah, I don't bet, but if I did, that would be one where I'd say, give me, you know, a number and put
Yep.
it on the A's to make the playoffs because they if their growth organic growth continues and they're
Hmm.
signing some guys up on some extensions and so they're going to feel like they're comfortable, they can just go out and play. They could be
Yep.
good. They
Yeah.
could be really
And
good.
they could, they in preparation of the big move in a couple years, they could go spend some money. They have money. They
Yeah.
could go spend some money and start plugging in some key pieces that they've been missing, bullpen pieces. You've got young outfielders that are strong, fast, great contact. Not a lot of power on that team, but that is a
Well,
team that were you about to say they'll nickel and dime you, right? They'll.
I say Nick Kurtz is what I was saying.
Oh, okay, Nick. Yeah, I mean they've got so many strong, solid, I think probably somewhat underrated pieces. So I don't necessarily disagree with you about the A's being a potential wild card spoiler and playing a huge role in the way this division plays out over the season.
Yeah.
Um, Rangers, Rangers are boom or bust, man. Like this team is, it's such a there. There's such a variance. There's no pitching depth.
Yeah.
All of their peak performers are at a point of regression in their career. I mean, you brought up Jonah Heim. They like just ran the dude out of town, right?
Yeah.
I think that the Rangers are closer to being on the back half of this division than they are closer to another run.
I think so too. I mean, I've got uh, well, then to finish up with the Angels, the Angels are playing. You look who the Angels have signed. They're all lottery tickets. Maybe
Yeah.
they can get something out of them. But yeah,
Well, they're too
and we
good.
won't
They're too good to. I think they're too good to tank, but they're not good enough to contend.
for the Rangers.
Oh, I thought you said the Angels. Did you say the Rangers?
Well, no, I think the Angels are still going to stink.
Yeah,
I think the
absolutely.
Angels are going to
Yeah.
stink.
There's no
You've got
direction.
some
There's no direction there.
until Artie Moreno sells the team and lets the GM actually do
Yep.
his job. They're going to be where they are. I don't think the Rangers end up in last place, but I'd be
I don't think so
surprised if
either.
I don't. I would be surprised if they contended, and they've got a better chance as we sit right now being in fourth place than third.
Yep. I agree. I
I
agree.
mean, you know
So
the
do the Astros remain the default favorite of the West, or are the Mariners a big enough threat if their offense improves to take that default favorite of the West
well
away from the Astros?
let me answer the question with a question. Do you
I
think
love it when you do that.
Do you think the Astros are going to score more runs? Because they were 21st in MLB in runs scored. Their OPS was league average, but they had relatively little power. You don't think about it, but
Hmm.
they really don't.
Yep.
Their very few extra base hits versus the rest of the league.
Hmm.
Um, their situational hitting is pathetic. Has been
Hmm.
pathetic.
Hmm.
Um, which is why I think Snit and Centron are gone.
Yep.
They brought
Absolutely.
that guy in from San Diego, and so I think I think his name's Rodriguez. He's the new hitting
Hmm.
coach from San Diego. Can he maybe they just need a new voice, you know, teaching them to with a man on third and less than 2 out, it's okay to hit a ground ball the other way.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to take into consideration both Paredes and Jordan being healthy.
True, true.
Those two bats alone changed the entire landscape of this
No,
of this offense.
that's an excellent point. That's a
So
really good point.
you're looking back at last year, and you're looking at the amount of at bats that did not have shoot, man, over the course of the season, the amount of at bats or the amount of lineups that did not have the name Jordan Alvarez, Isaac Paredes, Jeremy Pena. I
Yeah.
mean, heck, the way that Jake Myers was playing before he got hurt,
Well,
his name was missing from the lineups. I mean, you go back and you look at how many of these lineups and how much of the offense last year lacked those names, and these are all like 800 plus OPS guys. You have to think that with a healthy Jordan Paredes, again, I'm going to give Jake Myers a little bit of credit because that guy was 300 average and
well, they only hit 3.
875, 900 OPS whenever he was healthy for that stretch. A healthy Pena, a now settled in Carlos Correa. I think people get under credit the year Walker had. You put those guys together. This is a team that can win the West. This is a team that can win the AL, the entire AL.
You
I mean, fairly easily, to be honest with you. I think that this is a team that you have to say is one of the top three contenders for winning the American League.
Yeah, the Astros last year were kind of the old story about the car. Every time you know, e every time you got it going, it'd break down again.
Yeah,
Somebody'd throw a tire and they'd be at it at building up again, and it never felt like they never got to 4th gear.
yeah,
Never really
yeah,
got to 4th gear. So, I think they can.
definitely.
You
Hmm.
talked about Walker, people diss Walker. Walker's the only guy that was healthy the whole year.
Led the team in RBIs and led the team in home runs
Yep.
and played the entire year except for when baby was born. Yeah, that's it.
They gave him a rest when he was slumping, but
Sure.
never was out.
Yep.
Okay.
So
To wrap this
I think the AO West still runs through Houston, but the gap isn't near what it used to be.
fair, fair. So the thing with Seattle, and we'll wrap this one up, is that now Seattle knows what it's like to win. Never don't
Hmm.
sell short the
Hmm.
idea of a team that's finally learned how to win. That's where the Astros had people every year is they knew they were going to win, and
Yep.
and they wouldn't know how they're going to do it, but they were going to know how to win.
Yep.
Um,
When you got to think too. There's a little bit of an ego boost knowing a guy like Imai chose Houston.
yeah,
And so these guys they see that kind of stuff. They see something like that happen. And I think it was a little, it's got to be an ego boost. It's got to be a little bit of just a fire in them to know that this guy chose to come to Houston and wants to win. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited about the season, needless to say.
yeah. Couple things to wrap up on. Where
Yeah.
does Bregman go? Where does Bregman go?
Yeah, a couple big name former Astros are still free agents. Bregman, man. Okay, so the rumor mill has him still linked to Boston,
Yeah,
linked to Toronto,
I don't think Toronto after they got
potentially.
Akamoto.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you're
That ship
right.
sailed.
I think that you're right. Um, what are the other teams that were linked to Bregman?
Well, you hear the Dodgers, you hear the Cubs.
Yeah, maybe the
Um,
Cubs. I don't believe the Dodgers.
I just it just feels like he goes back to Boston. It,
I feel like they put together a long-term deal with Alex Bregman.
I think, and as much as we dissed Bregman and Boris for doing the deal they did last year, if they come out with this 5 and 160 or whatever, that's order of magnitude what they're talking about. That's pretty good
Yep.
job by Boris because you got the same deal this year that you thought you were going to get last year, plus you got
Yep.
40 mil more.
You got another
So
40 mil on top of it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You came out $40 million
or
richer.
yeah, you give another 40 mil here, 40 mil there, and then you got something.
Yeah.
Um, so I
Yep.
think he goes back to Boston. I think for his for no other reason, he starts running out of places to go.
Well, I think that's the question is where does he fit in on these teams that are going to be willing to put up a 5-160?
Yeah, yeah, you've already
And
cut that
so
down to
you've got a very small handful of teams.
yeah, you've already cut that down to 10 teams,
Yeah,
and
if not
the
less,
Marlins
because
aren't one of them.
what you're looking at is you're looking at teams that have kind of more of a win now mentality, and Boston is definitely there. A team that's looking for defense, leadership, postseason experience and resume. Um, Bregman fits that guy who is a clubhouse leader, has October experience. Um, yeah, I think that when you really start putting all of those pieces together, Boston fits the card.
Yeah, the only
I
place,
think Boston fits it.
yeah, the only teams I could see him really going to is you've got the Cubs, and if the Cubs sign him, they flip the young third baseman for an
Hmm.
arm.
Hmm.
He could go to either the New York teams, and then you could take Beatty and Vientos and flip them or move them to first base and make Polanco a utility guy, kind of a rover guy. Although they
Yeah,
just spent some money on him, he could go to the Yankees. He could go to the Yankees because McMahon is a left-handed bat, but he's a 215 hitter, good
yep.
glove, but McMahon's out there. They could flip McMahon someplace else. Outside, I don't really see him going to the Dodgers, although they could use him.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Um, but just Giants, not going to the Giants because you've got
hmm,
Chapman.
yep,
You've heard him linked to Arizona. He lives out there,
yes,
and
yes,
I could see that one happening.
maybe. I mean, Arizona's been doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that to try to get back to something.
Um, but who knows?
Yep.
I'm gonna say Boston first, Arizona second, Cubs third. That would be my order of where I think he'll go.
Okay. Okay.
Tucker sounds like the Blue Jays, right? Our friend
Man,
Rocky, our friend
it
Rocky
pains me
is
to
doing
say it. Yep.
our friend Rocky is got the free agent dance going on with his
Yep.
headdress and his dancing and
Yes.
Chance
Yep.
trying to get Tucker to Toronto, and it's a
I
fit.
I think it's the most logical place. That is a team that is willing to spend the money. One, they need the outfield help. Two, the premium left-handed bat. They would love to have another one of those. Um, they're a contender with payroll flexibility. Um,
Here,
he's
here's
just
something.
he
Here's
would be just
something
such a
else.
good fit in Toronto. I would hate to see it. I hate to see Tucker anywhere outside of an Astros uniform, but
Here's the thing
yeah,
else with Tucker is that he went to Chicago and people thought he was going to be the dude. Tucker is not the kind of guy that's going to be the
true.
dude. I have to
No.
admit, I'm stealing some of this from the talk that they do on MLB radio, which
Hmm.
is Power Alley on the morning is really good, and and the front office on Sunday mornings are both really good shows if y'all want to listeners want to pick up on some good baseball knowledge. But Jim Duquette in particular and Mike Farron in particular have said Tucker is the kind of guy who he wants to fit in, he wants to play. And a place like Toronto where Guerrero is the dude, okay? Bichette would be kind of the number 2 dude if he stays.
Yep.
Tucker can just go out and play.
And that's kind of the role that he had here.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, over those years, that he was kind of the in the background guy.
Yeah. He's a
He's the
second, third
6'2",
chair.
he's the 6'2", you know, 275-pound friend that you go to the bar with that never says a word and just kind of stands behind you, and nobody
Yeah.
messes with you because they look over your shoulder and they see that dude, right?
Well, he was always
Tucker
second and third.
was that guy.
He's a second, third chair. He's a silent assassin, whatever you
Yep.
want to call it.
Yep.
But I think he goes to Toronto.
I think he
It
likes it
sounds
there.
like
Yeah.
Toronto's is going that direction,
Yep.
and so we'll just see.
Yep.
What else?
It'll be fun to watch what's going on there. Um Man, I don't
Well,
know.
we just everybody listening. We're going to try to do these much more frequently than we did last year. Um, we enjoy listening. If you listen and you catch us when we go live, you can always ask questions. Love to hear questions, and you can just also contact us on X and leave questions. We'll be glad to get back to you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Gonna have a lot of fun this season. I think it'll be one that will be a lot of uh there'll be a lot of interesting weeks
Yeah.
and fun things that will make this season a lot of fun. Um I mean, let's get the most out of it because after 2026, we have the impending shutout.
Yeah, but we won't talk about that until
We
September.
won't talk about that, but I
But
think
it is going to make, and as we get
let's.
close to the trade deadline, that is going to make a difference.
It's going to make a difference. It's going to put some nice and interesting twists on this season for sure. Um, Bold predictions. There's one AL West team that massively underperforms expectations, and it's not Oakland. Who do you say it would be?
Mm. Boy, if I had to put a team that could go in the dumpster, it'd be the Rangers.
I think I'd have to agree. I definitely have to agree.
I wouldn't call the Rangers
Um,
dead man walking, but they're definitely in a trance.
yes, absolutely. It's no, there's no, again, it kind of feels like there's no direction there either, right? We said that about the Angels, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of direction up there in Arlington.
Yep. And so next
Yeah,
shows we'll talk the Astros. We'll talk more about the AL in general. It's been a while, so we had a chance to talk about our boys, but so it's time to catch up. So that's all I got.
100%. That's all I've got. Well, from my man Wally, I'm Ryan. This is Dirt Diamond Sports Talk, and we'll catch up with you guys next time.